Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're diving into a story where love is tested against storms, both outside and inside the heart. On a night when the rain hammered down, little Maya's innocent question broke the silence. If Uncle D leaves, how will we live? From that moment, promises, fears, and fragile hopes collided inside a small home, fighting against the weight of the past. Will Dee's vow to withstand the storms of doubt? Or will everything crumble once again? Stay with me until the end, because this journey will make you question what it truly means to protect, to love, and to begin again. And if you find this story moving, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. There are nights when the storm outside doesn't feel half as heavy as the one inside your chest. On one such night, rain poured endlessly onto the fragile roof of a small wooden house. The sound was loud, almost deafening, yet inside the room, a child's trembling voice cut even deeper. Little Maya clung to her mother, her tears falling as quickly as the rain. "Mom, if Uncle D leaves, how will we live?" she cried, her small body shaking, her innocent question carrying the weight of a fear far too heavy for someone her age. Dee stood nearby, his hands still rough and scarred from years of work and sacrifice. He stepped forward, the shadows of the storm flickering across his face, and though his voice was quiet, it was steady, unshakable. "No, I will not leave Huyen alone again." The words echoed through the dim house, firm against the pounding rain. Huyen's eyes welled up, her heart caught between relief and the deep ache of old wounds. She wanted to believe him, to surrender completely to that vow. But inside, a fragile question clawed at her. Could this trust, built on so much pain and sacrifice, truly hold? Or would it break all over again? The storm outside raged on, raindrops striking the thin roof like countless hands pounding on the walls of their fragile world. Inside, the dim flame of an oil lamp flickered, trembling as though it too feared being snuffed out. Maya's body shook as she pressed tighter against her mother, her wide eyes swimming with tears. Her little voice, breaking in the crack of thunder, carried the weight of a child's despair. "If Uncle D leaves, how will we live?" The words pierced the air like lightning. Huyen froze, holding her daughter tighter. She had fought for years, endured so much pain just to carve out a fragile sense of safety for Maya. And now, the thought of losing Day, the man who had slowly become their shelter, was unbearable. Her heart quivered. Could she risk trusting again? Dee stood at the doorway, rain dripping from his shoulders, his figure dark against the storm. His gaze was steady, though his eyes carried unspoken pain. He looked at them both, his voice deep and resolute. "No, I will not leave you alone again." The words cut through the storm. For a moment, even the thunder seemed to soften, bowing beneath the weight of his promise. Huyen's tears slid silently down her face. She wanted to believe him, to place her fragile trust into his vow. Yet memories of betrayal and loneliness clung like chains. Could love truly stand strong against the storms of the past? Could promises really survive when tested by fear? Maya, too young to understand the full depth of her mother's pain, still understood enough. Her small hand reached for Dee, her tears mixing with the rain that seeped into the house. "Don't go, Uncle," she whispered. "Stay with us." And in that moment, the bamboo walls and wooden beams of the house weren't just shelter. They became the battleground of trust, love, and hope. The storm outside roared louder, its rhythm pounding the roof like a drum. Yet another storm raged in Huyen's chest, a battle between the fear of loss and the fragile courage to believe once more. Diep moved closer. He crouched down and gently pulled Maya into his arms, his hands steady on her tiny shoulders. His voice trembled with emotion, but carried a strength that neither Huyen nor Maya could doubt. "Maya," he whispered, his breath warm against her damp hair. "I will not leave you, not now, not ever again. You and your mother, you are my family." Maya clung to him, her sobs softening. Her little hands gripped his shirt as though she feared he might vanish with the storm. Huyen stood nearby, her eyes shimmering with tears. She wanted so desperately to believe, to let his words wash away the years of loneliness. But the scars of broken promises still lived in her heart, making it tremble. Diep lifted his gaze to hers, unwavering even against the storm. "Huyen," he said firmly, "I know I failed you before. I know I left when I shouldn't have. But life has given me a second chance, and I will not waste it. Even if storms come, even if the world turns against me, I will stand by you. I will protect both of you, with everything I have." The room fell silent except for the endless drumming of rain. Huyen lowered her head, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. For years, she had taught herself not to hope, not to dream. Yet here he stood, soaked in rain, trembling with sincerity. Her heart, so scarred, so fragile, longed to believe once again. Maya wiped her face with the back of her small hand and looked up at her mother with pleading eyes. "Mom, please, believe him. I want us to be together." Huyen's lips trembled. Slowly, almost hesitantly, she reached out her hand. Diep caught it immediately with both of his rough palms pressing against hers with a warmth that felt like shelter. For the first time that night, a fragile smile touched her lips, though it hid behind tears. Diep held her hand tighter and whispered, almost like a vow, "This storm will pass, Huyen, but my love for you, it will not. It will stay, stronger than any rain." Outside, the storm continued. But within those words, a quiet strength began to grow. By dawn, the clouds began to scatter, and streaks of golden sunlight pierced through the sky. The air carried the fresh, earthy scent of rain. For the first time in a long while, the heaviness of sorrow seemed to lift. Huyen stepped outside barefoot, the damp soil cool beneath her feet. She closed her eyes, breathing in the new morning as if it could cleanse away the night's fears. Behind her, Maya's laughter broke the silence. "Mom, look, the ducks are playing in the puddles," she shouted, running barefoot into the little yard, splashing water with joy. Diep followed soon after, carrying a small basket. His clothes were still damp, but his face carried a determination that no storm could erase. "I'll go to the market today," he said softly, meeting Huyen's eyes. "We'll need rice, and I'll look for tools. I want to make this house stronger, safer, for you and Maya." Huyen turned to him, startled by the firmness in his tone. For so long, she had carried every burden alone. The thought that someone else would walk beside her now felt almost impossible. "You don't have to," she murmured, her voice trembling. But Diep stepped closer, his gaze steady. I want to. Please, let me. Her eyes softened. She didn't answer with words, only gave a small nod. Yet in her heart, a tiny seed of hope began to take root. Maya came rushing back, her hands muddy, her hair tangled with raindrops. She slipped her small fingers into Dee's rough hand and looked up at him with a smile. Uncle Day, can you build me a swing under that tree? When the sun sets, we can sit there together. Dee bent down, brushing mud gently from her cheek. His lips curved into a rare smile. Yes, Maya, I'll build you a swing, and I'll build you a home where you can always laugh like this. When he returned to the little house, the sun was already sliding higher in the sky. Maya came running first, her small arms full of wildflowers she had gathered from the edge of the field. Her laughter rang out like a bell as she cried, Uncle Day! Uncle Day! Look, I made a crown for Mama. She rushed forward, placing the crown of daisies on her mother's hair. Huyen blushed, her cheeks turning pink as Maya clapped with delight. But when Huyen's gaze fell upon the sack of rice and the tools in Day's basket, her smile trembled into tears. She reached out, her fingers brushing the hammer, then paused. You really mean to stay, don't you? She whispered, her voice fragile. Dee met her eyes, his expression steady. I don't just mean to stay, Huyen. I mean to build. For you. For Maya. For us. For the first time in years, Huyen didn't look away. Her chest ached, torn between fear and hope, but she let his words sink into her heart. The little house, though still fragile and unfinished, suddenly felt different. With the weight of his promise, it began to feel like home. Days passed, and Dee worked tirelessly to mend the house. The roof that once leaked now stood firm, patched with care. Wooden beams creaked with new strength. Every nail he hammered, every board he placed, was more than just construction. It was a vow turned into action. Maya followed him around constantly, her little feet trailing behind. Uncle Dee, when will the swing be ready? She asked one afternoon, her eyes bright with expectation. Soon, he replied with a smile, wiping the sweat from his brow. A good swing takes patience. She pouted, crossing her arms. But I want it now. Dee laughed softly. Good things are worth waiting for, Maya. Trust me. Huyen watched from the doorway, her heart quietly warming at the sight of them. For so long, she had carried everything on her shoulders alone. Now, seeing Day share the weight, seeing Maya laugh so freely, felt almost unreal. That night, the night stretched on, the stars glimmering faintly above. The storm had passed, but its memory still lingered in their hearts. Yet in that quiet moment, they held on to something stronger than fear. Something that felt like the beginning of forever. The story of Dee, Huyen, and little Maya reminds us that happiness isn't measured by wealth or grand possessions. It lives in the small things, the courage to try again, the kindness of a stranger's extra handful of rice, the laughter of a child on a swing. It's in the simple but powerful promise to stay, to protect, to love. And sometimes, even in the middle of hardship, those small promises are enough to light the way forward. On a stormy night, little Maya's voice trembled with fear. If Uncle Day leaves, how will we live? Her innocent plea exposed the fragile happiness her family had only just begun to taste. Day,
cô ấy
roughened
tan
by
biến trong
years
bóng
of
tối,
hardship,
để lại trong lòng
vowed
đệ
never
nỗi
to
đau,
abandon
xót
Huyen
sen
and Maya
lẫn hy
again.
vọng
Yet
và nghi
behind
ngờ.
Huyen's tears
Sau đó
lingered the
họ tìm
shadows
thấy
of
một cô gái
betrayal.
trẻ ốm yếu
Could she
và bất
truly
tỉnh
trust
bên
his
kia rừng.
promise? As
Nhưng đó không
rain
phải là
battered
Huyền.
their fragile home,
Họ đưa
a
cô ấy đến
quiet
nơi an
battle of
toàn,
love,
trong khi tâm
doubt,
trí đệ
and
vẫn bị
hope
ám ảnh bởi
unfolded.
cái nhìn thoáng
With
qua về
each
người phụ
passing
nữ,
day,
và anh nghĩ
they
rằng
worked
Huyền.
to rebuild their house
Sáng hôm
and mend
sau,
their lives,
Tử Vi tỉnh
determined
dậy
to
trong một
prove
căn phòng xa
that his
lạ, cảm thấy
vow
bất
was
an,
more than words.
nhưng cũng bị cuốn
Maya's
hút
laughter
bởi sự
returned,
điềm tĩnh của đệ.
and for the first time,
Khi Adam
the
xuất hiện,
house began to
một
feel
căng
like a
thẳng nặng
home.
nề bao trùm không gian,
But storms
gợi đi
always
mối
return.
quan hệ ẩn giấu
Will Dee's newfound
và quá
strength and
khứ chung.
devotion be
Cùng
enough to
nhau,
keep their
họ đứng trước
fragile
ngưỡng
world
của
from
một câu
breaking
chuyện
apart again?
đầy những